Hey guys, this is Ix with Rollout Reviews, bringing you another LBX review. This time it is Danball Senki Wars, D-Ezeldee. This is the final enemy from the show, and the true form of Phantom. Taking a look at the manual here, we have some product images of a model painted up by a professional modeler. You're not going to get something that looks quite this good right out of the box. He has his swords all displayed there, a shot from the back, and all of his effect parts. There is his player from the show, the main baddie himself, Celody Chrysler, and up here you have an image of him just shooting his sword bits there. On the inside, we have some full color instructions, so that is to be expected. And on the back, we have a little comic here where it looks like, in the end, the good guys win. Well, isn't that nice? Anyway, let's take a look at everything that this kit has to offer. So towards the end of the series, after Blasterizer GX uses his Riser Shinto Kamui, they think they've won, with Phantom destroyed. Lo and behold, out of the rubble, out of the dust, comes this guy, D-Ezeldee. Turns out that Phantom was basically just armor, blue armor that went over this guy. And before we talk about this guy individually, I want to do a bit of a comparison between the two. So first of all, this guy's much bigger, obviously, but that makes sense, seeing as the blue is all just armor that goes over this guy. Now, it would be cool if it had some kind of functionality that way, like if there was a version of this guy where the armor could actually come off, but right now, we just have two separate versions. These stands are very, very similar. This one's a bit taller just because it needs the room for all of this back here. Phantom himself is also just a bit taller, so it needs that extra leverage to get him up off the ground. And it also has this bit in the back to both support his wings here, and so it can flip around and support him in his other mode. This is a much more simplified version of the stand and is clear, which I like a lot better. But taking a look at some of their details, you can really see that this is what's under all of this blue. So first of all, if you'll take a look here, the knee sections, and there's actually a little sliver of clear plastic in there, along with these details here on the sides, are actually present here. The proportions are a little strange, but all the same, you have the knee sections. It also proves that these little circles are actually supposed to be black on this guy, but they skipped out and they were blue there. But it has the fully realized kind of feet that are all translucent plastic rather than just the sliver here. So those are kind of boots. And then the thighs are much thicker here because, well, they are supposed to cover all of this, basically. Same kind of deal with the waist section and definitely with the torso. You can see that it has the same dome underneath there, although it does kind of, again, show that most of this bottom torso section is supposed to be gold, whereas they skipped out and it's just black. The upper arms are exactly the same, and the tops of the lower arms on Phantom look basically identical to the tops of the lower arms here. Obviously, the rest of the lower arm is much thinner and much different. I also like how the hands on this guy are much bigger because they're a different color. Although it does look like they could be gauntlets that go over the black hands here, because these ones are a lot more dangly and a lot thinner. Now this also explains the little wing sections back here, because on D-Ezeldee they become fully realized wings. However, the scale, like I said, is a bit off here. They're much smaller over here and much larger over there. The head is also a very kind of interesting change. Well, not change, but you can definitely see the similarities, although once again the proportions seem a little bit off. The whole lower half is the same, basically. They are different molds, but they're the same shape, and it's supposed to imply that this whole thing is kind of a helmet that goes over the top, although once again this dome is much bigger than this, so you're supposed to kind of use your imagination, I guess. Now, I think the coolest part about this is if you pull off the wing section on Phantom, it reveals something that I didn't even notice when building Phantom at all, and that's this piece here. Setting this huge wing assembly off to the side. It actually has the little bits molded in, and kind of the side of the upper wing here, or the vague shape of it molded in there as well. So, I mean, once again, I know I've said it before and I'll say it again, the scale seems a bit off, but the details are there. So you can really see a progression of the two, and that is very cool. So, on to this LBX itself. Now, there's quite a few stickers on this guy, however, for the most part, they're not that bad. I really like the gold stickers. They stand out super well. However, I wish they went one way or another with those gold details, because this plastic looks pretty dull compared to the shininess up here. Oh well, you get used to it. These stickers back here I hardly ever notice, no problems with those. Same up here, however, if you're moving the arm you could accidentally scuff them. The ones on the side look super sharp, and I'm surprised how well they go on for the kind of strange shape up here. There's a sticker here and a sticker here on either side, and they look super cool. That's one of the defining things of this guy, in my opinion. Tiny little stickers up here, no problems with those, and all the same stickers here that I don't have a problem with at all. The stickers underneath the dome can be a little tricky to apply, but once you've got them on and you have the dome slapped over it, they aren't a problem because, well, they're underneath plastic, so no issues there. The real problem, sticker-wise, I have with this guy is the ones back here on the wings. First of all, they're going over kind of a rubbery plastic and don't stick all that well because of it, but they are kind of meant to go over a shape that they don't contort too well, if that makes any sense. It's kind of an awkward shape here, and they don't do the job all that well, and it's really hard kind of getting them flat. They don't look good. They're a pain to apply, although fortunately they're on the back, so you're not going to see them more often than not. This back section here is a multi-gimmick sack kind of thing, so you can attach the backpacks of other LBXs onto this guy if you would like. As for articulation, the head moves all the way around. The chin is a bit pronounced, but you can move this back here and kind of sink it down into the chest if you want his head down this low. Because he's very thin and he's a very, very small LBX, he's got loads of articulation. No big shoulder pads hindering anything like Phantom, no waist armor, nothing like that. So the arms go out super far, they go forward and back, they swivel, all that good stuff, rotate up here, bend at the elbow, and a ball joint at the wrist. Now the waist, because he doesn't have too much back heaviness or top heaviness, you can actually pull this out just a bit and get a fully functioning ball joint. So he actually has all of this movement in his waist, and he can sustain it, which is super nice. So he's got a rotation and a ball joint, a tilt, and everything you could ever want. Well, for the most part. His legs, they go forward and back, but are a little bit hindered by the wings back here. That shouldn't be a problem for the most part. Now, the knee spins 90 degrees, and you can get this guy into some ridiculous poses with all of that movement. Just because he's so unhindered, you can do some pretty crazy things with this guy. Now, he does have quite a few more things to go over, so let's talk about those. So the whole idea behind this guy is he has these 6 little bits on his back, and they can fly off and go around the room for him, basically do the dirty work while he stands in the middle of the room and watches everything get wrecked. It's very cool, and to represent that, they have these little pieces. They're all just one piece there. But they come off, and it reveals this little hole. Now, he's got this big assembly here, and there is a peg, and that goes into the back just like that. Now you can do this either way. Have this flipped around. It doesn't really matter, but whichever way you'd like to have it goes. Now, these aren't really accurate to the show. These are just there to kind of convey that they're flying around him, and thus they are clear, so hopefully on the shelf they don't get in the way too much. But they don't get in the way of these wings much at all. They are on ball joints here, so they can go forward and back and rotate however you please. Now, they have pegs everywhere, up here, 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 and here. And every single one of these bit pieces he comes with has a peg on it. Now, the 3 he comes with are the sword bit, the bit laser, and the bit guard, which is made up of 3. Now, unfortunately, these are supposed to have the gold details of this kind of molded in there. You can see the vague shape of the bit there, and that's supposed to be gold. Unfortunately, that's not represented, but what are you going to do? They are tiny little pieces of plastic, and a sticker in that shape and size would just be awful. But it is represented at least in all 3 forms of the bit. Now, he only has 6 bits. If you want to be accurate to the show, you can do this in any order of those 6 bits. So one can be a laser, one can be a sword, 3 can be a guard, and then you have room for 1 more, so I guess another laser, and in any variation. He also comes with these hands here, which are kind of straight out like that. Very cool. Kind of elegant, I think. You can pull these off. He actually can hold the swords, but he never does, and they're just a little bit loose. So there we go, just like that. And let's just start attaching these things. There's so many options. You can do this in so many ways, but for starters, I'll get it in the position that is on the box. So there's a peg on one side of each of the swords, and they can just plug in like this. So, boom, you have 3 swords on one side. You can do the 3 swords on the other, but also you can take the bits, you can, the laser bits, the bit lasers, whatever they're called, and you can kind of have them like this if you'd like. Just basically use your imagination. Do some really crazy things with this guy. He's all about variation. He's all about bits flying everywhere, doing different things. You can also take this and bring it around like that. And then there is a peg on each of the corners of the shield. And that just plugs in like this. And then you bring his arm up here to sort of represent that he is generating that shield and using it to guard there. Also, you know, you can kind of replace one of these swords with a laser, just like that. Or take one of these swords and attach it forward like this. Just a whole lot of things you can do, a whole lot of super crazy different display options. You have so many different things possible with this setup. They are a little bit annoying sometimes just because on your shelf, you know, you have this display. You want him to have the shield, but then back here you just have all this access plastic. But I think that is a price worth paying. In the end, I think D-Ezeldee is an awesome LBX, and definitely necessary if you plan on displaying any kind of final battle scenario on your shelf, like this one here. If you haven't got Phantom already, you might want to skip on him and get this one, just because you have so many more display options. However, if you are just absolutely in love with Phantom's design, it could go the other way around. If you already have Phantom, or just like his design better, you might not need this guy, unless you don't care about the continuity issues on your shelf. I am kind of partial to those kind of things, although in the end you could also have kind of a before and after display as well. This is what he looks like with his blue armor on, and this is what he looks like in his true form. No matter how you decide to do it, if you can get past these sticker issues on this guy and can kind of get over the lack of plastic and sheer amount of pieces that you're going to have to inevitably put in a bag somewhere, it's a super awesome LBX, and if nothing else, an incredible display piece. So, that is about it, guys, and this is IX Roll at IX, signing off.